Assuming you guys want to leaving Neverland alone.
I've heard a lot about it, but of course, I didn't watch it. It's 4 hours long? Something like that?
It's a 2-part, yeah.
You watched the whole thing? How compelling is it?
It's weird, because I believe everything they say, but I don't feel like I learned anything new. We all thought it all along, and they could just as easily be lying. I don't think they are, but it's just kind of, you don't know for sure, but you think. And so, I don't know. I
think it would have mattered more if they just said it while he was alive.
Definitely. That plays part. It explains why they didn't and why they did it when they did. But
sometimes it takes a long time for those things to come to the surface. They're adults now, etc.
One of them just had a kid, and that's when it hit him. And then when it hit the one, then it hit the other. And it's just a weird thing altogether.
I did try and have a discussion about, do I feel any differently now about the art, the music? No, but maybe I don't want to hold on to my copy of This Is It, because I did enjoy that for the music part, But
I don't care if anybody listens to them anymore. I don't care if they don't. Whatever you want to do, I get it either way. But that pretty much all about what I would have said about the movie anyway, I guess we're good. I accidentally unplugged that from the recorder, so I'm going to do it one more time. That's okay.
Podcast now. Start the show. Start the podcast. We're gonna start the podcast now. Start the podcast. Yeah. Oh yeah. I've been trying to come up with words for that song, for a long time.
Keep it plugged in that time.
Yeah, I did. I used to be able to mute you guys. Now the mute button's too far away.
How far away is it? Because I might want to push it on myself sometimes.
Welcome to Everyone's a Critic Movie Review Podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zarrell.
What would you do if you had $1 million?
I'll tell you what I'd do, man. 2 chicks at the same time, man.
With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick.
I am the smart. S-M-R-T. S-M-A-R-R-T.
And Josh Adams.
My wife, she is pain in my asshole.
Visit us at IHateCritics.net, everyone's a critic podcast.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Our handle is CriticsPod. It's where you can watch the trailers, read Sean's reviews, watch the 89 movie, or not watch the 89 movies, but Josh does show you the ones he's watching, and other interactions. The podcast is there as well. If you go to our website, you can be a Patreon supporter, IHateCritics.net/Patreon. It's the best way to help support the podcast. We also have a merch tab there. And then there's PayPal if you want to click on the PayPal link. If you don't want to use Patreon, you can donate that way too. You get a credit on the show and other select merch, bonus podcasts, etc. And then Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play. You can listen to the show wherever you want. Subscribe, rate and review the show. It does help us get noticed among all the other podcasts out there. We will read your reviews on the air if we ever get any more. Again, trailers. We've got Midsommar.
Midsommar, yes. This is Ari Aster's new movie. He was, of course, the director of Hereditary, which was, for me, the best movie of 2018. And I didn't even realize this was him initially. And so I was kind of confused by this trailer. And then I saw his name. I'm like, okay, this is maybe going to be my most anticipated movie of the year now. Mm-hmm. I can't wait to see this. It's also got the young lady who's in Fighting With My Family as the lead in this film, which I didn't know that either. So that was really awesome to see that. I could not possibly be more excited about this movie. He proved himself so much with Hereditary that he's got a carte blanche with me.
Yeah, I knew when Sean and I both posted the trailer almost at the same time, maybe a couple minutes apart. And I did see the A24 and his name on it, so I was all over it. I mean, it could have just been some guy farting the whole time. I would have been like, I'm in for this movie because of those two names. But no, the trailer was fantastic, and I can't wait to see this movie.
I have very much the same feeling about the trailer that I did for the Hereditary trailer. I think it looks very good, and I'm interested in seeing it, and and maybe it'll have a different outcome.
Maybe it won't fall apart in the end.
For me, yeah. But I mean, it's a very interesting concept and super creepy. Once you get a bunch of white people together in the same area, dancing around poles and stuff like that, then you just want to run, okay? At any point, I was expecting them to start chanting USA. But no, in this particular case, a horror movie set in a small town type thing. It looks like Florence Pugh is the actress. Am I right about that? And they're going back to her hometown. Jack Rayner appears to be the lead that's going with her to this festival, and things start happening. Yeah, okay, I'll see it for sure.
It's a very colorful horror movie too.
Oh yeah,
which sometimes that's hard to do. So we'll see how.
He showed in Hereditary that he's a master of production design to go with his type of horror. So I'm excited.
I just wish the masses liked this type of horror. Then we can just get to the movies unless there's any news we need to talk about. Okay. Well, the number one movie this week was Captain Marvel. Should we just start there and get it out of the way?
Get it out of the way. The $150 million. Get it out of the way. Let's get on to that other stuff first. let's knock this one out.
In fairness, I saw a bunch of movies this week. This is my least favorite of all of them. But I liked every other movie I watched. So I'm not bad-mouthing this movie.
I liked this movie a lot. I really enjoyed this. This was fun. Captain Marvel is, of course, Brie Larson as a woman who doesn't realize who she is initially. She's been taken to an alien planet by a group called the Kree, who she's believed are warrior heroes, although she's going to learn otherwise. They're battling the Skrulls, who are supposedly the enemy, and there's a lot of gray, a lot of nuance to that, and I dig the way that plays out. And there's really just fantastic action and terrific performances. Brie Larson's a movie star, damn it. She has just got chemistry with everybody. Everybody in this movie she's just fantastic with. She's just so completely comfortable and at home in this role. And that's what really sold me on this movie, is that she is just damn entertaining. There's a sequence early on where she's having a fight scene where she's kind of not able to use her powers. She's got this magic in her hands that she uses to throw people around, and she's not able to use it initially, and it's a really terrific fight scene the way it plays out. I loved the way they played that. And then of course the landing on Earth and Blockbuster and Radio Shack and the first meeting with Samuel L. Jackson, it's just so great. Every part of it just worked for me. I dug the way it was directed. I thought Bowden and Fleck did a great job with the color, with the action, with the special effects. I bought into everything. The cat was fantastic in this movie. And Ben Mendelsohn's really great in this movie.
What's the best part about that, though, is you still don't know who he is.
He's briefly in it, but yeah.
I've not criticized his acting. I've criticized his profile, which he still doesn't have one.
No, of course. No, I mean, he's right up there with Joel Edgerton in that Will Smith movie that came out on Netflix not too long ago where they both played...
Oh, the orc movie? Yeah. Orcs and cops working together?
Yeah. Kind of reminded me of that.
But I thought everybody in this movie was pretty fantastic. Sam Jackson, this is my favorite Fury performance in the entire series of Marvel movies. He's so much fun in this movie, and him meeting aliens for the first time and kind of really figuring out the new world order as it is kind of fun. I really dug the way that they played that, and he is just fantastic throughout this movie. And the chemistry between him and Brie Larson is off the charts. They click from moment one.
If you don't mind, I'll go first on this one. What I like is that a critic likes the movie, okay? It just is another mark in the genre that many critics share, and that's good for me because that means they'll keep making them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I'm not going to lambast the film. It's okay. And actually, after an hour-long conversation with my wife, who says this is the best superhero movie she's ever seen, after an hour-long conversation, she fixed a couple of things for me that I had problems with. And I said, oh, okay, I didn't catch that while watching it. That makes it better. But breezy and easy and fine chemistry, but also low on emotion for me in certain aspects. There's a couple of things I'll point to back up my point, because I don't want to spend 15 minutes talking about what I wasn't crazy about. Specifically, the alien autopsy that you're talking about. This is humans finding out that there's aliens for the first time, and they're just going to do an autopsy on a slab in the bottom of a store somewhere with no quarantine going on whatsoever. SHIELD, this organization that is super secret and everything and has all of the equipment in the world, doesn't even so much as put up a tarp to protect themselves. And I thought that was horse shit. That's just, I mean, me who suspends most disbelief in these type of movies, I looked at that and said, I'm sorry, no. This organization cares so much about secrecy that they're going to take all of Natalie Portman's research equipment and take it away from her, but when they see an alien for the first time, they're just going to start cutting it open.
Well, what part of you thought they didn't take it back to S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Well, they may have. The point is that it's no one's wearing a mask. No one is dressed for the occasion. There are no people waiting to take organs and harvest them. The scene is not typical with most initial contact, first contact type of situations. So the Marvel Universe has treated it as, well, they breathe our oxygen, so I suppose it's okay. It just seems slightly too easy for me for an organization that's shown itself on screen to be very up to date and knowing what they're doing. Okay, fine on that one. Another particular scene is when she meets her friend from the past. That particular scene has some good points because there's a daughter that is got wonderful chemistry with Brie Larson, as you're saying, and she's a good child actor too. There's not a problem with her performance.
How old is she?
What's that?
How old was she?
Oh, 9, 10, perhaps.
How long ago would it have been since Brie Larson was there?
6 years.
Right.
6 years. Okay, so she remembers her in a way.
Pictures.
That's fine. I'm cool with that part. What it is like there's not that moment that I feel most films at least address between the best friend and the other best friend. Like, you're back from how is this even possible? Okay. And they talk about it, but there's almost like a brushing over everything. It's just a little too easy for me. And that's how I feel with the entire film. It's too easy. It's too breezy. The stakes are high. The emotion is low. I don't mind Nick Fury because we're talking about 20-some years into the past. He's not a rookie, but he's also not seasoned, et cetera, et cetera. But just a little too easygoing, I suppose. And everything that happens between then and Iron Man 13 years later is what changes him, but it just doesn't fit for me. I guess in anticipation of this film, with the most powerful superhero of all time, we get the idea that she's the most powerful superhero of all time from 3-4 minutes of a space battle, and she knocks everything out. That is my favorite scene in the movie, in fact. And the rest of the movie it's just too... I keep going back to too easy because I really don't want to get into anything else that I was feeling. Their approach to the character, Bowden and Fleck's approach to this character, and the 5 writers that were on this, their approach to it is not my style, I guess. That's the resolution that I came to, is I prefer this type of movie to be a bit more grounded, a bit more emotional, and I wasn't feeling that. So this comes down to almost like the way that we perceive comedy. It's either for you or it isn't. A good analogy that my wife made is, you don't like it when your sister comes and plays with your toys. Okay, in a way, she's got something there. Interactions with female friends when I was younger, they would take the Luke Skywalker or whatever, put it into the Barbie scene and do things with Luke Skywalker that I wasn't crazy about. And I'm like, okay, well, but I don't know how to play this. It's not my style, okay? And in doing this, they've taken the superhero into a different area in which it's fine, I'm sure, but I'm not connecting with it. I guessed correctly that this was going to be Beth's favorite superhero movie. I asked her, I said, so this is your favorite, huh? And she's like, yeah. I knew it. I just knew it. There was something about it that just hit me wrong and hit her right.
Yeah, for me, it reminds me of Ant-Man in that when I watched that the first time, I was not like invested in the movie, and in a lot of ways she's a lot like Paul Rudd, the way she acts, she has chemistry with everyone, but at the same time when you're on the outside looking in, she has chemistry with no one. So you know how when you're not invested in the movie, you're just kind of watching it at surface level, and I kind of got more invested as the movie went on, but it was just like it wasn't funny. I mean, I'm sick of superhero movies, and I'm sitting there going, she's trying to be a movie star, and I like her better. And this is all stuff. I'm not blaming her or anybody else. This is all me and where I'm at mentally watching this movie. And as it gets going, it does pick up. And I like you said, towards the end, I was more into it and the action scenes, and it worked out. And I have stupid questions like, so a real emergency is when the universe ends, not when the world ends. You had 2 or 3 other movies where you could have called her back. But I mean, that's just silliness. So I don't know. My favorite part is obviously when Stan Lee is reading the script of Mallrats. Yeah. But I mean, I've had several friends that have seen it. One friend who hadn't seen any comic movies except for this one. This is the first one he had seen, and he didn't get it at all. He thought it was boring, and he found it confusing. And you really don't have to have seen the Marvel movies to enjoy this movie or understand what's going on. So I think that does say a little more about the movie itself. And another friend who liked it a lot. So it's, it exists. I don't think it's bad. I think you have your core Marvel movies, and I think you have your peripheral ones. And to me, this is, an Ant-Man level movie, not a Iron Man or a Captain America, but that's me.
There's something to be said about the Ant-Man comparison. I saw another critic say the same thing, in fact, in comparing it to Ant-Man.
I did not list that.
You don't read this website, don't worry. I know that at least. But in the lesser Marvel films, The Dark World and Incredible Hulk, they're lesser films, period. They're made by less competent directors. The production value is not the same there. The character development is not quite the same on those levels. It's boring, even compared to this one for me. But there is just something missing for this. This is the first time that I can remember being bored at a superhero film. I generally like this. X-Men Apocalypse. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this is the first time I've been bored since part of Doctor Strange, and before that, Thor: The Dark World in 2013. I just don't expect that from this. This is something that I love dearly. But my son loved it.
And I think we're almost coming at it from polar opposite directions, and you almost love it so much that if it's not the way you want it, like you said, if they're, it's your toys, you want it a certain way. And then me, I'm almost on the outside looking in, where I'm not putting in the effort to sit and enjoy the movie. So I don't know. 2 different ways of where it's not working.
Move me. I wasn't moved, and I tried to be. I wanted to be so badly, especially because this is Marvel's first effort with a solo female lead. I really wanted it to knock it out of the park. Maybe more for that reason, and it just, if you look at it just from its base level and take the completely, like the lack of promoting a Captain Marvel movie or a Black Widow movie before this for Marvel, this is their 23rd, 24th effort, and this is the first time, and now all of a sudden we're supposed to be thanking them for finally making one. On its own, it doesn't work for me, regardless of whether or not it's a female or a male lead.
So I think it did. I think it did hit that. I think it did that very, very well, in fact. And I thought the soundtrack really did a great job of helping with that as well. I thought the soundtrack of this movie was phenomenal. The use of "Just a Girl" by No Doubt killed me. I loved it.
That took me out.
Loved
of the movie.
it, Garbage and all that great '90s songs. They evoked the era brilliantly. I fucking loved the soundtrack, and that just really that hit me just right in the sweet spot. I loved it,
The soundtrack by itself is great. It's how they use the songs that I wasn't crazy about. It seems obligatory. Like, well, of course, in that scene, you're going to play Just a Girl, because in that particular scene, she's just a girl and she's kicking everybody's ass. Like,
It was almost
okay.
spoon feeding to me.
Yes. For me, it felt obligatory, spoon feeding, what have you. And then her wearing the 9 Inch Nails shirt, like, there's... Okay, fine, but why?
was
So
the
the
one that
movie
was
is,
It was on the mannequin.
of course, there are other mannequins there too, right? Okay, I think the movie is trying to make her into something of a rebellious character, akin to the leading ladies of that particular era, be it Gwen Stefani or the Garbage Woman. Shirley Manson. I can imagine why they would want to do that. It was the placement of it. It was like in Suicide Squad, where they place the songs almost in a fashion like, you're supposed to feel this now feel it. And that kind of thing doesn't come organically. I didn't feel it. And that's the part that I'm having a hard time doing, is I can't criticize the movie except for those two things that I mentioned. It's really more of a feeling that I'm getting.
I mean, Suicide Squad was clumsy and overwrought with its soundtrack. I thought this was absolutely perfect with the way that they did it, because they just placed it. They just placed it beautifully. They dropped those songs in just perfectly. I mean, "Come As You Are" in that scene with that Nirvana song, perfectly placed. Hit it just the sweet spot. It just picked up that scene perfectly. I really loved that. But I loved this entire soundtrack and really this entire movie.
Some of the, like when Thor Ragnarok came out, I was annoyed at the change of tone and the Marvel Universe had, and this one kind of follows that. And you keep saying breezy, and that's kind of what I found annoying about Thor. And really, did it start with Guardians? Which came first? Was it Guardians, Ant-Man? I don't know which. I've
Guardians
lost track.
was 2014, Ant-Man 2015. So in terms of chronology and how they came out, you can see why they would be attracted to making that kind of money.
Well, and especially as DC
Yes.
was getting shit on for being so dark, it just seems like they keep going lighter and breezier and lighter. And, you got certain things in here that are good. Black Panther does stand out between, some of these. I'd throw that as a core Marvel movie. And I even like The Avengers enough, but I don't know. I just, again, I don't think it's the movies. I just think it's more, I don't know. I'm kind of maxed out.
You got a month and a half left to stick with it, man.
A month and a half. Way too. Give me a little time to relax and get over it.
See, I'm 100% different about that. I want Endgame now, because this is not going to tide me over for another month and a half.
The Kid.
This is this is a
Movie
direct
that's never coming to the theaters.
Oh, I forgot they did come to this theater, didn't it?
I mean, it was a shocker. I mean, they dropped it out of nowhere with absolutely no promotion,
Right.
and completely empty theaters. So well done there.
We promoted it last week.
Yeah, the entire audience for the show I was at. So well done there, guys. Vincent D'Onofrio is, I believe this is his directorial debut, telling a story that is tangentially the story of Billy the Kid. Dane DeHaan is playing Billy the Kid here, but the actual story is about a little kid named Rio and his sister. I think Sarah is her name, and they are running on the run after having murdered their father, who was who had just murdered their mother, and they encountered their uncle, played by Chris Pratt, who was going to kill them for killing his brother. So they're on the run from him. They happen across Billy the Kid and his gang, who get picked up by Pat Garrett, played by Ethan Hawke, and they all travel together to Santa Fe, where the girl and the boy are going to be dropped off, and then they're going to take Billy on to be hanged somewhere else. The boy comes to kind of bond with Billy the Kid, and when his sister gets taken by his uncle, he turns to Billy the Kid to try and get his sister back, and finds that maybe this is not the hero he should have chosen. And it's a solid lesson learned, and really exceptional Western. Really, Ethan Hawke is just hitting home run after home run after home run with these performances.
Nobody's seeing him.
Nobody's seeing him. That's right. He's a fantastic Pat Garrett. And you get to see the whole of him and Billy the Kid and their relationship, and Dane DeHaan is really good in this movie. I mean, it's he's didn't annoy me once in the entire movie. I was really pleased. He's very charismatic and a really terrific Billy the Kid. He really evokes a lot of that young DiCaprio that people have talked about before. This is the first time I've really seen it. Yeah, on
Kind of
screen.
looks like him. Come on, that's about it.
But other people have said that he evokes DiCaprio, and I've never seen it before, and this time I kind of did see it. And so that's what I'm acknowledging here is that I did
like the Quick and the Dead DiCaprio.
the young DiCaprio. He kind of evokes that here a little bit. The direction is, what you would expect from somebody who's been in the industry for a long time but never actually been behind the camera before. So there's some clumsy elements, but for the most part, it's held together well and it's well written enough. And Ethan Hawke's really great, and that's the real key to the movie is that Ethan Hawke is really, really great in this performance.
Go figure. Some idiot on this podcast, me, said he evokes a young Jack Nicholson because of the way that he delivered lines and his particular facial expressions. And I think that in DiCaprio's younger career, they discussed him being a younger Jack Nicholson as well. So now I'm sure Dane DeHaan has already made his will make you a leading man in a $200 million movie mistake in Valerian. So he's never going to get one of those again. He's got to have stuff like this if he's going to ever reach any kind of status like that.
Well, he's not a movie star. He's a he's a character actor.
And I don't want him to be a star. I just want to see him in a lot of stuff. So that's a really good sign, and I feel stupid that I didn't get a chance to see it.
I mean, I was the only one in the world who saw it, so apparently.
I'm sure they've all seen it at some point. Now, I had said I thought it looked like a fun Western. Is it a fun one, or is it like a real one?
It's serious.
That's cool.
It's hardcore Western. It's bloody. It's brutal.
It's that stupid song they put in the trailer is what it is. That and Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt is not in the movie very long. And
they tell you that in the trailer.
and I liked the way he does play this character. It's very different. It's very different. And he's very stupid, and I like that.
All right. Well, we'll move on to a streaming challenge that we did this week, and then at the very end, we'll talk about Lords of Chaos. Let's start with. What do you want to start? Anybody care?
Why don't you start?
Paddleton?
Yeah.
Mark Duplass had a movie that's got a little bit of buzz on Netflix called Paddleton with Ray Romano in it. And we've always kind of enjoyed the Mark Duplass movies here. And so I was in St. Louis, my daughter's gymnastics. It was late at night. Everybody was sleeping. I turned it on. I just started watching it. And it's literally two guys hanging out till one of them dies. But it's a Mark Duplass movie. It's got great dialogue. It's a lot of fun. Right off the bat, Mark Duplass's character gets diagnosed with terminal cancer, and he's in the hospital with Ray Romano. Everybody they don't really play the gay thing up too much. There's one joke in it that somebody makes, but they're just side by side, inseparable the whole movie. He's the one asking all the questions, about the illness and the diagnosis. It almost like it hits Ray Romano's character harder, and. They had this game called Paddleton that they made up where it's basically like handball off against this drive-in movie theater screen, and the object of the game is to knock it off the screen into this barrel. They just literally sit and play Paddleton, a lot in this movie. And the talk between the two of them, you got two guys that can deliver lines. You got a stand-up comedian and Mark Duplass, great writer. Their chemistry is phenomenal. And at some point, Mark Duplass decides he doesn't want to live through the horrible parts of the cancer, so he has a prescription for this drug that will kill him, but they have to go get it out of town. So they go on like the 6-hour, I'm making up a number, but maybe even longer, car ride, and Ray Romano wants to pay for everything, and it's like, why do you want to? I'm dying. Why don't I just pay for it? And Ray Romano's car keeps getting declined, and there's a little bit of a road movie in here, and it's really it's a pretty good movie. They also watch kung fu movies, so there is a little bit of a parallel between the heart punch and the pill that he has to take and Romano's role, and I don't know. It's an easy watch. It's not very long. It's on Netflix for free. If you like any of the Mark Duplass movies, Cedar Rapids, Safety Not Guaranteed,
Blue Sky or Blue Jay, not Blue Sky.
Blue Jay, the one where he screws himself or his wife, who's not his wife. I don't know.
The one I love.
The one I love. That one's good too. If you like any of those movies, you're gonna like Paddleton. It's a breeze.
Hey, Josh.
Keeping with the idea of Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck, they had worked with Ben Mendelsohn before in Mississippi Grind, a movie that I was the only one really championing that much on the show a few years ago. And I enjoyed that a hell of a lot because of the interaction of Ryan Reynolds and Ben Mendelsohn. So those two working together already had me. And then I'll write Captain Marvel off as something that's not typical of them and not indicative of their, best work per se. I would say still that Mississippi Grind is. I haven't seen Half Nelson. Okay. Sugar, though, I've had that movie for about 5 years in my collection. I got it as part of like a swap thing. So, I put a couple in that I wanted to get rid of. I got a Blu-ray. I'm like, that's the one they filmed in the Quad Cities where we're doing this, at least in part. So I decided to finally watch it. It wasn't streaming. It may be it now. So I didn't actually check. But of course it would be. But I actually had the copy, so I watched it. And being a baseball movie about a young kid from the Dominican Republic who's drafted or paid for as an international free agent by the Kansas City Royals. He's in a camp, and he emerges from this camp to be taken to professional ball in the United States. And the movie is really about his transition from the Dominican to the United States and all of the challenges that he encounters. Now, that sounds like something of a typical film, and we're going to see somebody go from rags to riches, perhaps back to rags. But no, it's really a character piece based on this lead guy, Miguel Santos. Now, the actor's name, I forgot it. He has 3 names. I'm not going to be able to remember it. But they nickname him Sugar, I would presume because he has such a sweet, fluid pitching motion, which he does not, I might add. This is another one of those scenarios where you watch somebody play baseball and you can tell that they may not have thrown a ball that much before in their career or their entire life. He doesn't bend his back at all. All of his fastballs are high.
Can I stop you real quick?
Yes, of course.
I have a friend who was in the movie. He had to bat against him, and the guy could not throw. He could not.
No kidding. Who was it?
Matt Vito.
He was in the movie? Well, he wasn't in the cast list, I can tell you that.
Oh, no. But he's one. I think he might be like the only one who bats off him in the Quad Cities scene. He's like a big,
no kidding.
noticeable bat, and which sucks too because they were supposed to be like the age gap that they were supposed to be auditioning for. He was outside of it, but he worked for the media, so he got they gave him the role. It was kind of bullshit.
Of course.
If you're listening, man, I apologize.
They did have that audition. I remember it. I remember considering it, and then at the time, my body was
5
like,
years too old.
This is not happening. I'm not going to be on screen by any means necessary. But also in this movie are Andre Holland, he of Selma, and you'd recognize him if you saw him. He plays the #1 draft pick, the guy that's worth $1 million that comes up through the system. So he's kind of Sugar's co-pilot in a way. There's also actual former major leaguers in it. I look through the cast list and I'm like, Jose Rijo? No kidding. Braulio Castillo is a former Phillies prospect that's in there that plays his agent that gets him the 40% that he takes for himself. What this movie is really about is his personal struggle, and you get to watch and think about what professional baseball does in the Latin American community. It gives them an opportunity, sure. And a lot of these facilities are maybe one of the only ways that young men can get noticed and make a better life for themselves or their family. Fine. But then I read about the players that go home in the off season and they die in a car accident because the roads are so shitty in the Dominican Republic. So how much are the major league teams actually investing in Latin America? It made me think about that. It made me think about the struggles of all these guys that we kind of write off as like, oh, he has a terrible fastball. Oh, he's getting pummeled. Like, well, maybe because he's undergoing culture shock right now and has to live with two people that live in the middle of Iowa and wear shirts that say, God bless America all the time, like this character does. I found it to be an interesting watch, especially once our hometown stuff is on screen. Now, I've never seen this before. Maybe you guys have in other ways. I mean, you've been in a movie, so you've been in contact with stars before. You guys don't get as starstruck, I'm sure, as I do. But I'm sitting there looking at it and saying, I drive there a lot because the River's Edge, the hockey place locally, is on screen too. And it probably makes me like the movie a little bit more than I should. It's not great, but it's a complete film with a nice character arc in it. It made me think about baseball and how many players go through this, like thousands and thousands of players that go through the same process as this young man and never get there and have to figure out what to do. And the people that take advantage of them all the time, be it in the Dominican Republic or be it in America, it's a really tough gamble to take, the game. And as much as we love it, there's a really rough underbelly that we don't often see, and this movie explains it well.
Yeah, I thought this movie was really good, and it's a terrific character piece, and it's a study of a life that you don't see on screen very often, and that's really what Fleck and Bowden do very, very well, is observing characters in that way.
I highly recommend it. I don't know if it's streaming on YouTube or
I'm sure it's
Amazon.
I'm sure you can rent it on Amazon. I doubt it. I mean, I shouldn't say doubt. I don't know. I haven't looked, but I bet it is.
It's a kind of a crime in a way that I haven't seen a baseball movie that was filmed here in my hometown area, and it came out in 2008. So I'm very sorry, Bowden and Fleck.
And then, Sean, you saw Jezebel?
Yes, and I should admit, this movie I don't think is streaming yet. I happened to see it because I was doing some satellite coverage of the South by Southwest Film Festival, and I had an opportunity to watch this movie on a link. And this is a really, you want to talk about character studies and unique lives. This is a very unique life of a 19-year-old girl whose mother is just passing away off screen. She's in the last stages of cancer, and she's living in this cramped space with her little sister, her older sister, her slightly younger brother, and the sister's boyfriend, and there's one bedroom and one living room, and that's it, a living room / kitchen. So they're all in this space, all on top of each other. The sister is supporting the entire family because neither of the boys have jobs, and she's supporting them as a phone sex operator. And she gets her sister, who's 19, a job as a cam girl, working in that kind of that outsider. That's just on the edge of, I guess it is pornography really, but it's not quite pornography as you think of it, in the back, like with movies. It's not a movie. But it's a very unique life. This girl, Tiffany Tennille, is the actress, and her character is also named Tiffany. And she's inexperienced and virginal, and at the same time she's thrust into this very not virginal world, and she doesn't really know that any of this is kind of unusual. She doesn't really have any life experience to tell her how unusual this all is. She knows how it makes her feel, but she also doesn't realize, like a lot of people are going, oh, this is so very sad. This is a very sad life that she must live, and she doesn't really realize that. She doesn't really recognize that. This is at once kind of scary and kind of fun, and she finds an aspect of it that's kind of sexy, and the movie allows her to be sexy, and it allows itself to be sexy. And that's a bold choice to make, because again, most people are going to judge this negatively and say, oh, this is so sad. She's so poor that she has to do this thing that is so immoral. In your eyes, maybe she doesn't realize that. She doesn't see it that way. There are ugly aspects of it, the way she's taken advantage of financially. She's making $15 an hour to do this, and maybe getting a percentage of of the amount of money that guys pay per minute or whatever to watch her do whatever they ask her to do. But then you find out that she's not really doing much of it because a lot of it is camera tricks, and it's a lot of imagery, and even a lot of the guys, it's a fetish site, so a lot of the guys aren't even asking her to do anything all that daring. One guy that she gets in with just likes to watch her paint her toes. And she knows it's kind of weird, but she's not really all that put off by it because she doesn't have to get naked. It's such a fascinating slice of life. This is directed by a woman named Numa Perrier, who's probably best known for she's got a role on Orange is the New Black. This is her first feature-length film, and she's really great at this. She's really great at this character study and really observing this character in a very hands-off fashion. She makes no judgments whatsoever, and the characters make no judgments of her at all. It's about you and how you react to her, and since you can't talk to her and tell her how you feel, you're just forced to kind of absorb absorb her life in a very unique way.
And remind me, I have a cam girl story to tell you off air.
Oh, wait a minute. What's off? There's no off air here. What?
I was gonna say, once you started explaining cam girl, I'm like, I know.
No, a guy Josh and I used to work with, he dated a cam girl, but I don't think he knew who she was.
You know that story? I know what you're talking about now.
I mean, he found out eventually.
Yeah.
But again, no judgments. That's why I go to those sites too.
We discussed that in the car after coming back from Under the Skin.
That is all too expensive for me. So I know of it. I've never partaken of it.
Well, it doesn't have to be expensive, I suppose.
Turn the camera on yourself.
That's why we're going to video. I see.
What are you trying to tell us, Bob? All this time he's not been an accountant.
I'm camming right now.
There's a fetish for everything.
Some people just like podcasters. It's weird.
Press those calculator buttons, Bob. What's 10 million times 35, Bob?
I like it when you clear out your values.
Make those numbers balance.
Are your debits equaling your credits? But Jezebel is a fine film.
Yeah, we're no judgments.
I don't know enough accounting terms to really keep that bit going.
Yeah, I've exhausted all of mine, and I worked in an accounting office with Bob.
He was pretty much just using Excel terms, if I'm not mistaken. And then, just for fun, I watched Lord's Chaos because I didn't realize it was streaming already. I was listening to a podcast with the Culkin kid, Rory, and I realized it was on Amazon, so I'm like, shit, I'll just rent this and watch this since I'd seen Paddleton over a week ago. And wow. Sean had saw it first and was calling it movie of the year contender already. It was that good. And I've read the book. I'm kind of familiar with the characters. I even watched the Varg's YouTube channel before. So I know these guys pretty good, and I know a lot of the fans of the movie are saying it's not accurate and whatnot, but it captures everything you need to, it does capture, the idea of what happened. And I don't know, you were probably doing a better job of explaining, but it's a hell of a movie.
This is a true crime story from Sweden in the world of black metal. And this is a strange world where these guys have these persona that where they try and shut joy out of their life entirely. And kind of feed that into their music. For some of them, it's just a lifestyle or just a kind of marketing gimmick. And for some of them, they try and live that. And one of them lives it in a way that is very disturbing and becomes very dangerous over time. And yet at the same time, Jonas Ackerlund is the director here, and he does an amazing job of capturing both the seriousness and the danger of this, and the absurdity, the absolute outright Coen-esque absurdity of this, and that is such a tricky tone that this movie pulls off. That's why I love this movie, is because you will laugh at this movie. You will laugh at these characters and the bizarre choices that they make. There's a wonderful, almost parodic scene of this kid. He's been burning down churches, and the media is taking notice of it, but nobody, of course, knows who did it, and he wants credit. He wants to have credit, but he doesn't want to get in trouble. So he decides to talk to the media. He decides to have a reporter over and starts telling him stuff, and he's posing for pictures. But he said, "Don't use my real name." "Okay, can you see my entire face?" "Don't show my entire face." "Okay, but this is my name." "Wait, don't use my name." It is this wonderfully hilarious scene, and this kid playing Varg is sensational because he is just, at once he is this pathetic figure, and then he's this menacing figure, and the menace and the pathetic balance each other out in the strangest ways. Then you have Rory Culkin, who is phenomenal in this movie. Mm-hmm. He's at once, he takes this very seriously, and it means a great deal to him, and he also kind of wants credit for what's going on, and at the same time, tragically, he sort of grows up at one point. He just kind of he starts to get it, how silly this all is and how meaningless it all is. And then, of course, that's we in the audience, or those of us who know the real story and what happened, it becomes this slowly evolving tragedy before your eyes, because you're seeing this kid kind of come into himself for a moment, and you know what's about to happen, and it hurts that much more when it does. And that is such an amazing trick to pull off, because he's made you feel this ridiculous absurdity throughout, and yet he's also we've already seen one murder, we've already seen multiple church burnings, and there's still one big murder left, and you're just, when it arrives, it is so devastating, even when you know what's going to happen.
The crazy thing is the whole black metal world could really be a TV show, or there's so many stories that they can tell out of this. This is kind of the main one. What's his name? Varg versus, I keep want to say his real name, Arseth. What do they call him? Euronymous. Varg versus Euronymous. That's the story they tell here, but there's so many. I mean, this could literally be a TV show, and there's still guys in this genre to this day that take it too seriously, that they won't play live because that's selling out, and then you have the other one who, they say, I mean, Euronymous is Culkin's character, and he's definitely a poser, but he's also kind of the one who created the whole thing. But Varg takes his creation and actually does the things he's pretending to do.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. There's this guy, I think his name is Dave Hill. He's got a band he calls Witch Taint. And the thing about Witch Taint is that he made it up as a joke on black metal guys. And he started emailing him. He didn't even have a band at the time. He just started emailing these black metal guys and telling them that they weren't black metal enough. And just criticizing them for everything that they did. And they just had to sit there and take it, because, of course, you can't react negatively to these people. You can't say, no, we don't suck. You can't, because life sucks. Everything sucks. This is all shit. And it's just so ridiculous. They're going back and forth with him, and they just accept him into their world without actually knowing who he is. You can hear that on Malcolm Gladwell's podcast. It's really, really funny.
I mean, they're basically, might as well be Goonies, kids with a club. I mean, it might as well be that simple. They just happen to make music, if you want to call it that. And there's one scene where Varg goes to make his record, and they just put one mic in the middle of the room, and you're honestly this is going to sound terrible. It's I know that's the point. And I don't know,
because production values would go against the ethos of black metal.
Yeah, there's two. We haven't even talked about the character Dead, Val Kilmer's kid.
Yeah,
He is
Val Kilmer?
Jack Kilmer.
His
He
kid,
is
yeah.
amazing in this movie. He basically
plays the Indian from The Doors.
kind of, yeah.
But he was the lead singer of Mayhem, the kind of the original black. Well, I mean, I guess Venom's original, but the one who took what Venom did and created black metal, and he kills himself, and Euronymous finds him, and instead of grieving, he takes pictures and makes it an album cover.
And allegedly takes pieces of the skull and makes necklaces out of it.
Ugh.
Unless he's a poser, we'll find out later.
Unless he might not be. Yeah, that's the thing. He did take the picture. It was an alternate album cover.
You know, on my watch list,
The character Jack Kilmer plays, his name is Dead.
All right.
That's what he calls himself. He calls himself Dead.
It makes a lot more sense when he's actually dead, I suppose.
He sleeps in a coffin, too.
They actually theorized that he may have had what they call Cotard syndrome, which is literally believing that you're dead.
Oh. Okay. It's kind of fascinating. To the point where when you guys first started talking about the movie and the stories behind it, I was fascinated with the idea too, and I it's at the front of my watch list. And if I wouldn't have watched 89 films, I bet this would have been much more enriching than the 89 films that I actually got to. But
yeah, I mean, the scene where Dead kills himself is hard to watch, and then the final scene of the movie is way more effective than I expected it to be. Maybe the most effective murder scene I've ever seen.
Yeah,
I'm willing to go on that far of a limb. What they do with his head at the end there, I'm just like, holy fuck! It looks like he really did that. It is effective as it gets. I really thought they knocked us out of the park. I was curious how they would do it. When you're dealing with something like this, you have a group of people who are automatically going to hate everything you do unless it's perfect. You have people who don't want to cooperate. And then, but Jonas was there. He worked with Mayhem. He knew Dead. So it's obviously it's not necessarily completely accurate because you don't know really who was there at burning the churches, because it's possible, knowing Varg, he didn't do anything either. He clearly did one thing, but he could have just been bragging to take credit as well. So you just don't really know what the truth is, and that's how they start the movie off, based on truth and lies. But they capture kind of, the poser versus the real thing and how ridiculous it is either way. And they capture that to about as good as you can get. And I highly recommend this movie. It is out on Amazon, Vudu, and whatever other streaming where you can rent movies. Any other thoughts on Lords of Chaos before we move on?
It's one of the best movies. I mean, it may be the best movie I've seen so far this year.
It is for me, for sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event for the linear, legitimate, and universally recognized, undisputed classic.
The King of Comedy.
Yeah, this is. I'm starting to feel like I'm doing something wrong or something, because this is going to be the second week in a row where I've watched a Scorsese movie and not gone, that's brilliant. I didn't hate this movie, but I didn't love King of Comedy either. King of Comedy is the story of Robert De Niro as a fame-seeking comedian. He's obsessed with this talk show host played by Jerry Lewis, and he just spends all of his time trying to stalk this guy and get him to listen to his stuff and get him to put on his show. And he has these fantasies about being on the show and being friends with this character, Jerry. Jerry Lewis's character is also named Jerry. And his sad, delusional life that he lives, where he's got like cardboard cutouts of Jerry at his house and other celebrities that he talks to and interacts with. He hangs out with this group of autograph seekers who are a little bit more than just autograph seekers. They're desperately obsessed. And this movie presages a lot of the celebrity culture that we've seen that led to people's genuine death, like Rebecca Schaefer back in the day. Like the level of danger that you're talking about in terms of celebrity obsession is certainly there, and he captures it in a way that's very uncomfortable and very hard to watch at times. That said, something about De Niro just doesn't work again for me in this one. I just didn't buy him as the glad-handing, happy-go-lucky weirdo. I bought it occasionally, but it's such a put-on, and it's such an over-the-top put-on that it kind of wore me out over time, to the point where by the end, I was kind of... I'm watching to see if he's funny or not, and I don't think he is, and I can't tell if the movie means to pretend that he is or if he's not. And then I couldn't even figure out whether or not the ending was real or if it was just his imagination again. And I understand the point of sometimes of having a level of ambiguity, but I felt that this movie was so ambiguous at times that I wasn't really sure what was real and what wasn't. And since I wasn't invested fully in what De Niro was doing, I really didn't feel the movie all that hard. And that said, I did love Jerry Lewis. I thought Jerry Lewis was incredible in this movie. He really nails this character. He really is like every emotion that he feels is you're so on his side. You so understand and you sympathize with him deeply. And he's absolutely right to be the kind of dick that he is, because in his situation, he has to be that kind of dick. If he's not, he's never going to have a moment of peace. And you also see how sad and empty his life is because he can't deal with this all the time. He can't all these people just constantly on top of him. So it's no wonder he spends all his time by himself. That part I bought into. That part I liked. I also just didn't feel like Scorsese's style. Like, it didn't really stand out in terms of that classic Scorsese style in the way that Goodfellas does, or the way that Bringing Out the Dead does, or The Departed. And all those movies really feel like you get that sense of Scorsese, and I just didn't feel that here.
I was able to shape my opinion on this not knowing what I felt by reading Ebert again. I'm like, oh, that's what it is. What you're speaking of in the not Scorsese style, generally those movies have had a payoff of some kind. There are results to the characters. And in this particular one, it leads you up to that point almost every single time, but it doesn't give you what you're expecting out of Scorsese. In other words, De Niro killing Jerry, or Jerry killing De Niro, or some sort of death involved, something violent happening or whatever. It just leads you right up to that point. Now, me being familiar with De Niro and the type of performances he's capable of, I'm expecting violence, and then he just continues to be the most annoying person in the world the entire film. The reason I bought this and it made me super uncomfortable is I'm not saying that I'm not Jerry here in this situation, but I think at some point a lot of us have had somebody in our lives that you give them like an inch, they take 5 miles, and you have to kick them in the face to get them out of your hair because you were only giving them an inch.
I know, Bob, he's becoming sentient now. He knows why we let him on the podcast.
I'm aware. Oh, man, that explains so much. That explains Beth, too. Poor thing. She's the nicest creature in the world. But there are some people that will not take a hint and don't subscribe to society's norms when it comes to interaction and friendship and attachment. And they've got a particular screw loose. It's not the same kind of screw loose where it's just, your standard psychosis or standard schizophrenia or whatever the case may be. It's a specific type of mental illness. I wish I could categorize it here, but as a robot, I am not a psychologist. But I understood what they were trying to do with this, especially when you consider from the celebrity standpoint. I felt that the movie was definitely ahead of its time, that maybe Jerry Lewis was autobiographing a lot of this movie, that maybe it's so authentic because he had to deal with this type of thing. As as an amateur Jerry Lewis guy, I'm talking about I've only seen him on marathons, so I thought he was this wacky guy and the cover of the Nutty Professor, etc. I thought that he was something of a caricature of himself even, and he shows me a lot of talent here, and if that's the way that he's been his entire career, I owe it to myself to see more. But the level of obsession between De Niro and Sandra Bernhard in this movie, who doesn't surprise me with her performance one bit, it was jarring to the point of it made me tense the entire time, expecting that something was going to happen that didn't end up happening. In the end, it's really just it's sad. I feel bad for Jerry Lewis, and bad that somebody needs something like this to validate themselves as a human being. Be it Sandra Bernhard, be it Rupert Pupkin, which I will never forget that name as long as I live. In terms of a great movie, boy, it's hard to say when something is making you this uncomfortable, and it's such an unpleasant watch that it's great. But it sure was effective in affecting me, and so therefore I'm glad that I saw it as a counter to most of what Scorsese has offered in his career to me.
Yeah, for me, it's like I think I lean more to where Josh is at, but I don't know. Like Observer Report, I feel like does this better.
Oh yeah,
it's definitely an unreliable narrator thing. I feel like this one tries to that's 100% all the time Seth Rogen's voice. I feel like here they actually show the fantasy a little bit, and that might almost be. That might almost hurt the movie a little bit. I think if you just made it, if you just had it from De Niro's perspective and his story, the way he wants it to be told, I think that works better here. But again, maybe not. I think part of it too, like Sean said, has to do with the fact that Scorsese has almost a style. Obviously, he's got multiple styles. He has movies that like Kundun and that 7-hour religious movie he did a couple years ago that are in Last Temptation of Christ and whatnot. But it's not your typical Scorsese. I know Shutter Island's another one that kind of reminds me of this, where that's another unreliable narrator, but the marketing campaign sucked for it because it came out almost a year in advance and everybody knew right away if they've seen a movie that Leonardo DiCaprio was. And it didn't need to be that, the big twist ending, because I don't even really think that probably that could have been another unreliable narrator type movie. I don't know. I like this one a little better than Shutter Island, but I think Observe and Report is a little bit more perfect than this. And then again, too, to the fact that you're so used to De Niro, I don't know. It just, I don't know. There was something a little off about it, but at the same time, it was still pretty good. If that makes any sense. I don't know.
I don't hate it. I just it didn't live up to the expectations that I had for it in terms of like Rupert Pupkin is an icon of this. Before there was Stan, there was Rupert Pupkin.
Eminem for all you kids.
Well, at least
the song Stan.
Standing is still a thing, though.
I know. You know what's going on, Josh?
Luckily, I'm not a big Eminem fan.
He wrote a song called Stan, and Stan was a character, an obsessed fan who kills him and his girlfriend at the end of the song.
Is that the song that has the Dido
Yes.
interlaced? Okay, then I have heard the song.
I was hoping for something more, and I was hoping for something that would remind me of really great Scorsese, and I still think this doesn't rank anywhere near Taxi Driver or Raging Bull or the Departed. I think this is well below those, and this more along the lines of Cape Fear, which is a movie that I thought was not all that great, and another De Niro performance that was kind of all over the place.
But again, when you're putting it up, when your catalog is so good that those are your best movies, it's hard to always land in that lane. So, like you were saying, you can't really. It doesn't make it bad. It's just its own kind of.
Luckily, next week we're going to be back. We're going to go to some really great Scorsese. We can continue our Scorsese streak.
Yeah. A movie I actually didn't like at the time when I first saw it, but we'll see when we get there.
It really takes over like 3 different eras of Scorsese in a way. There's 1982, this one, Cape Fear 91, and then Bringing Out the Dead was either late 98 or 99. So we've really spread it out a bit.
Since this is Aunt Bethany's 80th Christmas, I think she should lead us in the saying of grace.
What, dear? Grace! Grace! She passed away 30 years ago.
1989, let's start with the De Niro flick that inspired this classic, and that's Jackknife. Now, I did not actually get all the way through this, watched about 30 minutes of it, in fact. It is available to stream through Amazon's Tubi TV app. And it's definitely a smaller film. It stars De Niro, Ed Harris, and I think Mary Kay Place. And De Niro and Ed Harris are Vietnam vets. They aren't really friends, as Ed Harris states early on. They were in the war together, and it seems like Ed Harris is still having a really hard time adjusting to life, and De Niro's making the best of it that he can. He's the titular character here. People call him Jackknife. He's all interested in fishing in the Boston Red Sox, and he drinks a lot of beer. And I imagine that this is going to be a character study in post-Vietnam soldiers that really can't adjust to life and never really had the opportunity to. And Mary Kay Place, who's Ed Harris's sister in the story, may serve as somebody who provides a little bit of joy. Now, only a half hour in, I wasn't able to tell you for sure how it ends. Do you guys know this movie?
No.
Okay. Well, I think
You know the cover.
I think I'm going to go back to it because it's free and because I've already invested that half hour of time in it. But what I watched was fine, but it's definitely on a lower production value level than most De Niro stuff that we've seen. Also in '89, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. Now, I got really excited about this idea because it's directed by Terry Gilliam, and whether he hits or he misses, he's still a guy that belonged to the Monty Python group. And Eric Idle's in the film too, and I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be Monty Python antics. Really, this resides more in the Terry Gilliam 12 Monkeys, Terry Gilliam Time Bandits type of realm, where it's a fantastical story. And in fact, you can see why he's so drawn to the character of Don Quixote as a result of this movie. Baron Munchausen is played by an actor, Neville, I think is his last name. I can't remember what his first name is. Haven't seen him before this movie that I'm aware of. I think John Neville. And he's a real character. They're putting on a play about him and his adventures, and he's going to tell the real story here. And the film exists in a series of fantastical flashbacks in the vein of something like Big Fish. Now, I know that you don't like Big Fish, but you understand what I'm talking about there. The flashbacks are going to tell magnificent stories that probably didn't happen. Like Eric Idle can run, 1,000 miles per hour. There's a strong man involved. There's and Baron Munchausen himself is quite the talker. And the problem with this movie is that it's not funny, and not even a little bit. The weirdness is joyous. Okay, there's a lot of heart involved in this project, but similar to how I feel about the Don Quixote story, it's just a little too dull for me. What I do like about Quixote is this idea of the guy who's a failed achiever. He's got to invent things in his head to feel accomplished. In this particular case, it sure seems like things were accomplished here, but you might have had to have been there to really enjoy it. And that's how I felt watching this movie. Is I guess you had to be there. It was probably a lot of fun to make. You see a lot of familiar faces on screen. Uma Thurman shows up at some point. Other familiar faces I can't even think of it. But I found this to be disappointing in a way that I wasn't expecting. Like, I preferred Brazil over this, if that helps.
I remember this movie only for Robin Williams.
Yes.
Robin Williams' head flies around of its own accord. And it's weird as that sounds.
Yes, he plays the Moon King.
And you expect him to be funny, and he's not.
He's not at all funny. His body does one thing, is a womanizing, awful, like almost rapey character. And once the head attaches, then he's mean. But if the head detaches, then he's light and airy and wants to help the Baron escape. And the way I'm explaining it makes it seem like you might need to be on some sort of hallucinogen to really enjoy it.
No, it's Terry Gilliam for you.
Yes.
But it's Robin Williams, and this is a wild kind of idea, and you think, oh, well, Robin Williams would be perfect for that, and then he's just not funny, and he's not scary, and you don't really know what to do with that.
And that's exactly how I felt. And this one was not streaming for free, but is available. Have you seen the movie?
I have not.
Okay. And the other one that I watched, and it falls into the category of films that our moms liked. And I've said that a number of times, but that puts us into a specific mindset. It's the afternoon on Sunday, and your mom is preparing for the next day, and she puts this thing on TBS, and she really likes Sybil Shepherd from Moonlighting, and this young actor named Robert Downey Jr. She's seen him in a couple of things. She likes him. She remembers Ryan O'Neal from Love Story or something like that. That was him in Love Story, right? Yeah, anyways, point being, he's a really pretty man. So this is a strange movie. Christopher McDonald and Sybil Shepherd get married at the beginning. Ryan O'Neal is the best man. Okay. They get married. Sybil Shepherd, 5-10 minutes later, announces that she's pregnant. And then Christopher McDonald is hit by a car and dies. Now, the problem with this is that it looks like the worst special effect in the world. If you take this and Meet Joe Black and put them together, they're on opposite ends of the spectrum. You don't believe for a second that Christopher McDonald died from this hit. It's like 5 miles per hour, and he even stops the car a little bit with his hands. Whatever the case may be, fine, he's dead. He goes to heaven, and as many films in this era are wont to do, be it Made in Heaven, Ghost, Defending Your Life, we've got a depiction of the afterlife here. This film talks about reincarnation. So they're going to send him back into the world if he wants to. Do you want to be a boy or a girl? And Christopher McDonald runs headlong into the ether again to be born, but without his shot. So that means he's going to remember things from his previous life. And he's reincarnated into the body of Robert Downey Jr., who miraculously finds Sybil Shepherd 20-some years later as he's an aspiring journalist. Sybil Shepherd now has a daughter played by Mary Stuart Masterson, who's 23 years old. Can there be a romance there? Yes, the film does go there, okay?
Oh, this does not sound good.
Because at some point, Robert Downey Jr., in a performance that's actually very interesting, because he's showing all of the possible emotions that you expect out of him, like shock, humor, playing the strong man, playing the weak man. He shows a lot of emotion in his face and on screen. He's really good at it, okay? But, okay, I already mentioned what the problem is with this movie. Ryan O'Neal is interested in marrying Sybil Shepherd, so he's going to marry his best friend's girl 20-some years later. He's been kind of helping raise a daughter that he never got to see. Robert Downey Jr. figures out, oh, I'm this guy after having been in the same house that he lived in. So you've got a guy that's trying to come to grips with his daughter is romantically interested in him. He's still interested in his wife that he left behind and trying to convince his wife, his friend, etc., that he is the guy that died. He's just come back. Now, there are some problems with the film, obviously. This is directed by Emil Ardolino of Dirty Dancing, who is no stranger to sweet moments, like genuine moments. Dirty Dancing is a wonderful movie. I love that movie, even more so when it turned 30. In this particular case, there are sweet moments just like that film that are wonderful. Okay, a scene where Robert Downey Jr. is playing a song on the piano and Sybil Shepherd is moved to tears by it because she knows that this is her husband of the past. And there's a real connection there. And if the film had stuck with that, then we're fine. And in fact, drop the entire daughter character plot. You don't need it. The film suffers as a result. And all of that sweetness and the conflict between the best friend trying to love somebody that he shouldn't love, and the wife who's trying to get over the dead husband, and the husband who's trying to reconnect. That's a wonderful triangle that you don't need the daughter to be a part of. And then it's going to be a wonderful 80s film if you make that choice. But the film doesn't do that. It becomes awkward at times, and then it cops out at the end by eliminating Robert Downey Jr.'s memory to a certain point so that he doesn't remember who he was, and now it's okay for him to romance his daughter.
Ew.
That's copping out.
The the memory loss is the cop-out. But for fans of 80s love themes, this has the Peter Cetera Cher duet, After All, that was nominated for an Oscar. Well, I mean, I love adult contemporary music, so hearing that for me was neat.
Now, do they?
You guys get to have your damn black metal. I'm going to have my Peter Cetera.
I'd rather listen to black metal.
Do they? It'd be nice if they get rid of the audience's memory too, so you don't realize that.
Yeah. The one thing I can say about Ardolino, in the 2 movies of his that I've seen, there are uncomfortable moments in Dirty Dancing too. Moments that probably, why would you have Patrick Swayze romancing Baby, who's 16, 17 at the time of the film? You can say it's a different time, all that you want, but Ardolino was honest about it, at least throughout the entire film. And he's honest about the feelings in this movie too. I'm just bothered by them a little bit more.
Yeah, it did take us as humanity to get. It took a little too long on that one.
My mom really liked this movie, though. I mean, she had it on VHS and often told me that I should be seeing it. I'm not entirely sure what the message was behind that, other than that she knew that I liked romances and adult contemporary themes.
It's Peter Cetera, that's what it was.
She knew I loved me some Chicago. So.
Anyway, next week we've got Captive State, 5 Feet Apart, and Wonder Park. I don't know what that one is.
Animated movie.
That's right. I remember now.
This is the film where Sony Animation says, we've got to make something.
let's remake Over the Hedge with a park.
There you go.
Maybe everybody will see Captain Marvel the first week and nobody will see it the second week. To go along with 5 Feet Apart, we're going to keep the Scorsese thing going and bringing out the dead to the podcast. I saw it in the theater and haven't seen it since. Didn't like it at the time. May have kind of, not been in the right mindset. I don't remember. I'm curious.
Crazy Nicolas Cage stuff, I think, since you've come around on that one.
Yeah, I think that might have been the problem, too, because Crazy Nicolas Cage annoyed me at the time when this came out. Was it 99, you said?
98, 99, yeah.
So, you're talking about a 19, 20-year-old, so. And then we're going to bring a top 5 back. We haven't done that in a while. We'll do medical movies or movies with medical facilities in them. For those of you who get that reference. It's a wrestling thing. Vince McMahon never says hospital. He says medical facility.
I've enjoyed the amount of drama that's in WrestleMania without the volume on is probably...
WrestleMania is another month.
Oh, I'm sorry. I see a banner that says WrestleMania.
It's the road to WrestleMania. It's been on in the background. Purposely, it's kind of in my back, so I haven't been watching it. So, oddly enough, only Josh can see it. Really.
Well, there's more conflict in this than the Adventures of Baron Munchausen.
But yeah, that's next week. I do want to thank our Patreon supporters this week. I don't have their names, so I'm going to need some help. But our key grip level, we have Charlie Messing and the Hall of Famer Jason Bryant. Our character actors, Cousin Jeff, Christina Cato, and Josh Paul.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Our special effects level, Corey from Ivy Envy and Sarah Morale.
Well done. Well done.
May the Force be with you.
Rhymes with my last name. I should be able to figure that out. Our associate producer, Jason Mollett.
Everybody has to eat shaving cream once in a while.
And our movie stars, Uncle Jeff and Dave Sievers.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
If you want to be a Patreon supporter, head over to ihatecritics.net/Patreon. You can also click on the PayPal link at ihatecritics.net. And then if you want some merch, there's a podcast merch tab as well. Either way, any of those will really help support the podcast. If you do become a supporter, you'll get a credit on the show and access to bonus podcasts and other things, merch and whatnot. Otherwise, yeah, tell your friends about us, help us grow the show, and we'll see you next week.
That ought to do it. Thanks very much, Ray.
And we're the three best friends that anybody could have. We're the three best friends that anyone could have. We're the three best friends that anyone can have. And we'll never, ever, 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 ever leave each other. We're the best three friends that anybody can have. I mean the three best friends that anybody can have. That's right, the three best friends.
Pinched my hand putting these microphones in. Hurts so bad.
Oh, that's what that is, an ice pack.
Like I got my skin cut in between the microphone and the... hurts so bad. Truth or Dare in 2018 or Alien?
Alien.
I haven't seen Truth or Dare, but, I mean, obviously, it's Alien.
Neither have I, but I just wanted to make you sweat a little bit. Tropic Thunder, Shrek the Third.
Tropic Thunder?
I know what I'm supposed to say, but I'll go with Shrek the Third.
I'll go Tropic Thunder. Big Shrek the Third fan? Or just not a Tropic Thunder fan?
Not a Tropic Thunder fan. It hurt this week because somebody on a board that, lacks insider facts said you never go full libtard. And that, of course, got me all hot and bothered. So, yeah.
Trading Places or Kung Fu Hustle?
Trading Places.
Trading Places.
I love that movie. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure or Eastern Promises?
Eastern Promises.
Yeah, it's Eastern Promises.
I agree. Although I do like Bill and Ted. Freaky Friday, the Lindsay Lohan version, or Blue Velvet? I kind of want to see a combination of these two movies.
I feel like I really don't like either of these movies, but I guess I'll go Blue Velvet because that's what you're supposed to say.
I would agree.
I kind of like both these movies. I'll still go Blue Velvet. Freddy versus Jason or The Wolf of Wall Street?
Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah, I haven't seen either of these, but...
You'll love Freddy versus Jason.
Well,
think about it like, put it on level... Like, make Captain Marvel the bar, and I think you might like it okay.
Okay.
And with Wolf of Wall Street, the problem there is you're making Goodfellas and Taxi Driver your bar. Or even King of Comedy, for that matter. The Passion of the Christ or Rambo Part 2.
Okay, this one's easy for me, but...
Which one's more fun? Rambo 2's fun.
Oh, yeah. That's the clear choice for me.
Fishing with Gandhi.
The Raven 2012 and Children of Men.
I don't think I've seen... Have
That's
you seen
the John Cusack, Edgar Allan Poe movie. I haven't seen that.
Even I have not seen that one.
Children of Men or Night Shift?
Which one's Night Shift?
And Michael Keaton.
Henry Winkler. Ron Howard movie. First time seeing breasts on screen for Josh.
I can't even remember that movie.
We watched it on the show even, I think.
It was a classic when another Ron Howard movie
Did I like it? I don't remember.
It was where they're doing, what are they, like running a prostitution ring at night?
Yeah, it's a morgue, and they turn it into, a call girl service.
I don't know.
Two classics. Which one do you like?
The Burt Bacharach song, That's What Friends Are For, is in the film.
Children of Men it is.
Yes, I would agree.
Gone in 60 Seconds, 4 Weddings and a Funeral.
4 Weddings and a Funeral.
Agreed.
I guess that's a Fishing with Gandhi for me. American Pie, In Her Shoes. 2005, Cameron Diaz. I can see her shoulder on the movie poster. I really can.
In Her Shoes is a really good movie, but I had a lot of fun with American Pie. That's kind of a minor comedy classic. In Her Shoes is a better movie.
I haven't seen that one, but I do know the author. I think this is the author of Something Blue and Wifey, stuff that my former wife used to read a lot. I'll go with American Pie as a result. That movie's turning 20 this year. Ay.
American Pie, Stranger Than Fiction, Lost in Translation.
Lost in Translation.
Will Ferrell doing serious, Bill Murray doing serious. Which
Yeah, that's hard because I know what I'm supposed to say, but I really enjoyed Strange with Lost in Translation.
Yeah, it's Lost in Translation for me. I like Strange in Fiction okay, but it's like another level down for me. In Bruges or No Man of Her Own, 1932, Clark Gable.
I've not seen that one.
Neither have I.
Goldfinger. Or is it In Bruges? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, it's In Bruges for me.
Same for me, believe it or not.
Deuce Bigalow, Male Gigolo, or The Hangover.
The Hangover.
I am picking The Hangover.
I'd rather have my hangover.
An actual hangover. That's what I'm picking over.
I made the smart move and saved my fishing with Gandhi.
Thank you for smoking The Village.
Thank you for smoking.
Agreed.
Little Nicky, The Fountain.
The Fountain.
That's
how much I hate
Little
Little Nicky.
Fishing with
Fucking unwatchable piece of shit, Little Nicky.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like The Fountain, but goddamn, Little Nicky's hard to fucking watch.
Little Nicky is the worst Adam Sandler movie, far and away.
What was? Why did he choose to do that voice? What was that about? That is the most bizarre choice.
I will say the documentary that goes along with the DVD is way better. They just talk about metal music the whole time. Pretty Woman, The Day After Tomorrow.
Oh, man, I should have saved my fishing with Gandhi.
I want to see these two combined into a movie.
The Day After Tomorrow, even though it sucks.
I'm a Pretty Woman.
A wealthy businessman picks up a prostitute to be his long love amidst the apocalypse.
The movie I've been talking about forever.
Yes. I'll go with Pretty Woman. Better soundtrack.
Pretty Woman won for the first time on the podcast. Judge Dredd, the Stallone one, or In Bruges?
In Bruges.
In Bruges.
I agree. Back to the Future, Russell Crowe's Robin Hood.
Back to the Future.
Yep.
Sherlock Holmes, Scarface, 2009 Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes.
Planet Terror, Tombstone.
Tombstone.
Rain Man, Suntan.
Rain Man what?
Suntan.
What's Suntan?
2016, I don't know.
Never heard of it.
Rain Man, Oh Lucky Man, Malcolm McDowell, 1973.
Nope.
Looks goofy as fuck.
No idea.
Rain Man, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Fuck you.